What I'm hoping to do is show you how Princeton University is planning to save the planet between now and 2046. Next slide. Oh, there's that. I'm that clever. Hang on. How cool is that? Okay. So this says we need to save the planet, but we need to do it with good financial stewardship. If people look at Princeton and say, oh yeah, you did that, you reduced your carbon footprint to nothing, but that's because you're rich, that's the totally wrong message for people to get. It has to be, we made a business case for it. Every single project, we took a pro forma up the hill and said, here's what would happen if we didn't do this, here's what would happen if we did. It actually pencils to reduce our carbon footprint when you look at the life cycle cost. This also says we need to do it with no magic. We can't just assume that amazing things will happen spontaneously. We have to follow the existing laws, the existing codes. We still need to work with the local municipality, that kind of thing. The campus needs to stay beautiful. We can't just gut it, renovate it, and put a brand new campus up. We have 180 buildings. They're completely different. Everything from George Washington saw our signature building as he came over the hill, all the way to present. So we have everything from the 1700s to present that we need to work with. We're very heavily research intense. So I think of the energy plant where I work as in service primarily to research and incidentally to the academic and the administrative buildings. Here's what we do right now. We make electricity, we make steam, and we make chilled water. We need these utilities 24/7, 365. So electricity, fairly obvious. Steam we use for heating, but also on the very hottest day in August, you still want to shower. You still want your dishes to be washed. You still want to be able to wash your hands. And for research needs, we have sterilizers, autoclaves, cage washers. So picture 365 days a year, a need for heat and chilled water. We also need 365 days a year to air condition the buildings in the summer, but also to cool off your laser, your electron microscope, your CT scan machine, and to cool off your computer facility, even on the coldest day in February. This is cogeneration in a nutshell. We put fuel in a jet engine. It happens to be the stealth fighter engine, the FA-18. If you were once a Blue Angels pilot, you've got two of these pushing you through the air at about Mach 2. We hold ours still, and we spin an electric generator with it, and we can make 15 megawatts. And the exhaust comes out, as you probably recall, having been a Blue Angels pilot, the exhaust comes out at 1,385 degrees, so it's plenty hot enough for us to boil water. If all I do is use the jet engine to spin a generator, that's about 30% efficient, mediocre efficiency. But if I capture the exhaust heat and also make steam, cogeneration, then that's about an 80% efficient process. And to the horror of the engineers in the room, I'll tell you that pretty soon we're going to show you how to do about 5 times more efficient than that. Again, we're burning natural gas. In reference to the previous 2 speakers, we'd be very interested in talking about renewable natural gas, even as we taper down. In really simplistic language, they tell people, well, we're trying to not burn stuff. But when we get a little bit more nuanced, I still want on-site renewable power I still want on-site controllable power generation for reliability, because we're not naive. We think Hurricane Sandy or something like that will happen to us again. We were the one bright spot in the sky in New Jersey during that. We kept the campus running. I still want that ability so we don't lose research, which is really our core business, as well as education. So I still need controllable power gen, so I'm either going to burn diesel or natural gas, and ideally something that's renewable. Here's our cute little jet engine. It would fit between me and the end of the table. Very compact, high power, very responsive, but not wildly efficient. Here's what we do on the cooling side. I've got a chiller, I've got a thermal storage tank, and I've got a cooling tower. And what we do is we cool off 2.5 million gallons of water when electricity is super cheap. So I'll run an electric chiller in the middle of the night. I'll buy power for maybe 2 cents. You and I pay 16 cents at home per kilowatt hour. I'll buy it at maybe 2 cents in the middle of the night. And then I'll cool off 2.5 million gallons of water that I can later use to deliver to the campus when power might cost 16 or 20 or even 50 cents a kilowatt hour on the most extreme days. So there's an every single day arbitrage opportunity between a low price and a high price. That's what my thermal storage does for me on the good day. And on the bad day, the chiller fails or the cooling tower fails. And what it means is that the operators, instead of scrambling because the researcher's calling saying their laser failed, the operator can very thoughtfully turn up the pump and just pump water out of the tank. So by having some kind of capacitance, some kind of storage, I avoid the crisis being cascaded down to my campus customers. Here's our thermal storage tank, 80 feet in diameter, 50 feet above grade and another 20 feet below grade. This is such a good deal. It's probably the best return on investment that I've ever made in terms of a project I've done. 3-4 year payback. There's not many businesses that can't tolerate that. We're going big on this. We're putting a new hot water storage and a cold water storage on our main campus, as well as the same thing on a satellite campus. Really good investment for reliability, resilience, and cost savings. This is our plan. Like I said, we're going to get to carbon neutrality by 2046. I'm not saying we might. I'm not saying we intend to. I'm saying we will. We know how. And we have plans to, and we're implementing those plans. 2046, by the way, is the 300th anniversary of the institution. The bulk, the orange wedge, is converting from steam, which is tremendously inefficient. The pipes, the oldest steam lines that we put in, were put in by people who did not know the First World War was going to happen. So the steam lines that serve our signature building, Nassau Hall, were put in 1906. Oh, that's a while ago. Maybe you should put new ones in. You can picture over a century and a half, the steel might be in good shape, but the insulation is totally degraded. Some critter chewed off the insulation, or it got flooded and the insulation fell off, or in a century and a half, metal bands that held the insulation on have oxidized. It's fallen off. So a third of the heat product that I send from the plant out to the building, 1/3 of it gets lost to the environment. Wow, that's pretty wasteful. We're talking about the fugitive emissions from the natural gas. It's a microscopic amount of what they deliver. In our case, the heat that we deliver, probably a third is lost between the plant and the building. So we have to renew that. Should we renew it in kind? Then we're strapping the university to another century of combustion-based and very, very wasteful energy. Instead, we're going to go best practice, and we'll put in district hot water delivery. And now I'm bringing it closer to ambient temperature, much, much less loss, factory insulated, probably be there a century from now, still in good condition. So steam to hot water conversion, also geo-exchange. So we're going to, instead of taking heat out of the chilled water and throwing that heat away using a cooling tower, by the way, we're never going to call them cooling towers again. You know what a commercial cooling tower is. Henceforth, you're going to call that an energy throw-away machine. We don't really want to throw away energy. We'd like to harvest it, and we'd like to store it. So I'm going to take the heat out of the chilled water, and I'll harvest it, and I'll store it in a hot water tank. And when that's full, I will store it in ground, geo-exchange. So I'm going to heat up billions of cubic feet of rock underground under the campus, and then extract that again in the summer and deliver it back to the campus. Extract that in the winter and deliver it back to the campus. So instead of heat extraction and throwaway, we're going to have heat extraction, storage, and then redelivery. The green wedge is, first, any building that the program allows, aesthetics allow, the roof condition allows, we're going to decorate with solar PV. We already have 16 megawatts of solar photovoltaic on campus that produces 20% of the electricity that we need today behind the meter on our own property, and we continue to add more solar. We'll never do 100%. So at some point, I'm going to have to pay someone else, would you put up solar on your property and then sell us that output? But our goal is to do as much as we can on campus. And then the last wedge is honestly what the previous couple speakers were talking about, It could be biofuels. It could be renewable natural gas. It could be some science that hasn't yet come. I have expensive ways to fill in that wedge, but my hope is over time, we can actually reduce the cost of the very last bit. If you took one slide, and by the way, you can have the slides from the organizers. If you took one slide, here's the recipe to save the planet on vis-a-vis Princeton University. Every building that we touch, we're going to either improve the building envelope or brand new, we're building to what we call passive house standards or very close to passive house standards, which is a super tight building envelope that loses much, much, much less energy. But by the design of the HVAC systems, it's actually very pleasant. So we're breathing fresh air, not stale air, even though the building's super tight. We're replacing our district steam system with a district hot water system. We're creating an electric-powered heat pump facility. So you've heard the idea of everything going electric or moving towards electric. And then we're creating daily thermal storage tanks so we can store that energy on a daily basis, and seasonal storage, which is our geo-exchange. And then we're going to install on-site renewable, the solar, and then the off-site I'll need to buy from somebody else. This is what we're doing today. On the right-hand side, I'm burning primarily natural gas. I'm sending very hot steam out to the campus. We're making it at 450 Fahrenheit. You definitely don't want your office that hot. You definitely don't need your shower that hot. So I can move my distribution temperature way, way closer to ambient. I can bring it down to 160 or 140 Fahrenheit, which is still hotter than you need your shower or your office. But right now we're burning stuff in boilers and sending heat to campus. And right now I'm adding energy to the system on the left-hand side, and I'm removing heat from campus and throwing it away. So very simply, wouldn't it be nice if we could combine that? And that's what we're going to do. We're putting heat pumps in. It works an awful lot like your refrigerator or an air conditioner or the industrial chillers that I've got. It's just that what we call the condenser temperature is much higher. I can reject heat at about 160 degrees to my district hot water system, and I can extract the same heat that I always did from my chilled water system. So the idea is we're moving energy instead of burning a lot of stuff to deliver energy and then throwing a bunch of energy away. And the heat pump is going to be 5-6 times more efficient than the gas turbine-based cogeneration that we're doing today, meaning 1/5 or 1/6 the amount of energy input. This is a 3-year picture. The red is adding heat to the campus. The blue is removing heat from campus. And what you can see is, gosh, if I could somehow capture that blue part and save it for 6 months in my back pocket, then I could deliver it 6 months later and pretty much match the red part, especially if we made the red part, the heat delivery, more efficient by changing from steam to hot water. It's a pretty good match. So that's what informs the idea of using geo-exchange for storage. This is a picture we were talking at the break. It is very invasive. No apologies. It's noisy. It takes up a bunch of space. It's really messy. You're definitely mucking around in the dirt for months. No apologies either. This is what we have to do. We've been doing things one way for a century and a half. We need to do things in a cleaner and lower carbon footprint way going forward. This is the singular moment in time in which we're making a really, really big change. It's gonna be a little bit painful for a short period of time, and then it'll mostly be hidden for the next century. Here's an artist's rendering of the heat pump plant. That actually exists today. I walked through it the other day. It's beautiful. It looks just like that, except right now, none of the landscaping is there. So it's not very pretty from the outside. But if you go to Princeton, you stand on the parking deck across the street from that, you can see pretty much a view that looks just like the artist's rendering. This is us decorating the campus with solar PV. Pretty much if you park a car on campus, certainly in a parking deck, also on our flat visitor lot, you're going to be parking under a solar panel. And we also have a bunch of fields, maybe 50 acres, dedicated to solar PV. I don't expect to do a lot more ground-mounted field arrays, but I expect to do many, many more rooftop arrays and parking top arrays. Don't worry about the numbers. All I want you to do is see the shape of the graph. Left-hand side's energy input. By doing what we're doing, we're dramatically reducing the energy input. The next one is energy cost. By doing what we're doing, we're dramatically reducing the energy cost. The third is carbon emissions. By doing what we're doing, we're dramatically reducing our carbon emissions. And water use, it's not obvious, people, but those energy throwaway machines, the cooling towers, we evaporate 50 to 80 million gallons of water a year. We're going to reduce that a lot. If we were having this conversation in Atlanta, in Colorado, in Southern California, energy, what we're doing would be a very sweet byproduct, but we would be thrashing each other with rakes and pitchforks over water because we've over-committed the Colorado River and other water sources. We'd still do the same thing. And this would reduce our water footprint as much as by half. And so it's a really big deal. Most people don't realize that energy production is very, very water intense. And so we're cutting down our water use, our OPEX, obviously a high CAPEX, but the life cycle cost pencils. And so our OPEX is lower, and our view of our costs going forward, which I know to most businesses and ours included, knowing the stability of the energy costs is a really big deal. I want to land it there. I don't know if there's a minute for questions or.
I have one.
Yeah,
so I'll start. So, works in Princeton. You made the case that it's cost effective. How large do you have to be in order to make this work for you, or can you be a small little office park and do it? You know, what's the scale needed in order to accomplish this?
The kind of question you're asking is one that I love puzzling with. How big does it scale? How small does it scale? It scales down to your house. And there's actually, if you ask the organizers for the slide deck, I stuck in probably 5 or 10 more slides that are, what could you do at your house, which is akin to this. So the answer's in there, it's hidden. But definitely, if you own a small business, a restaurant, or an office park, you could do this. Remember, I began the conversation by establishing we have a steady need for heat and a steady need for power. If you had a church, you might do something different, or if you had a bar, you might do something different. I'm thinking about the church or the place of worship because they've got a huge spike in use and then very little for a long time. So you might focus on the office part different from the sanctuary part. You might think about the office park slightly different. So these are going to be bespoke solutions. They'll be highly customized, situation specific, and specific to your business needs. But every one of them can follow this kind of thought process.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question. Go ahead. Here comes the microphone.
I'm half deaf. You might as well speak in the microphone.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Yep, I don't know if it's on. How about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Very good presentation. I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Converting, to heat pump, plant, at Princeton, what's the payback? How many years have you done, the payback analysis? Thank you.
So I'm going to do a little bit of a tap dance in front of you right now. I want to wait until after we see the Inflation Reduction Act impact on this, because that makes as much of 1/3 the capital investment difference. And I fully expect that we're going to get a really, really big benefit from that, but I can't tell you yet. And the other thing is, we have just gotten the keys, and we're just about to start this thing up. And it's not even that. We've been involved in the construction and the operation and the commissioning. We're just starting the commissioning. Only down to this week, I'm beginning to measure performance. If you can defer that question, I apologize, for a year, I will.
We're doing this again next year, too.
Yeah,
So
I will answer
hold
that
on
with
to
great sincerity, but there's so much that hinges on our ability to capture the Inflation Reduction Act money.
We'll get your number. We'll call you back.
My email is on the first slide. All right. I am really grateful for the chance to talk to you. What I don't want you to hear is, oh, Princeton's doing this, but they're the only ones who can because they're rich. What I want you to hear is Princeton pencils every project and does it very, very thoughtfully. And if it doesn't pass our tests, it's almost pointless. It's not an academic exercise. We want others to be able to follow our lead.
Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.